This will be our second Mastermind Monday, a 31-part series all about the Chemistry of Indoor Environments program, which is a giant experiment that spanned 10 years and lots of different kind of little tiny research projects that get collaborated into it. And all of it is the brainchild of mainly one connector who kind of saw the vision and then put this whole team together. Her name is Paula Olsiewski. Today's not so much a technical talk because she's not one of the researchers. She is the one who ran the funding part of it. She is a chemist herself, and she's very important to us, so I wanted to put her right up front, also because it'll be like kind of a light version of some of the rest of this that you'll hear. So this is kind of her history of how this program came to be, if you would like to watch it. She's incredibly important to us because she brought us into this program. She is the reason that Grace and I know so much about indoor chemistry and about microbiology and all the things. And frankly, it was just talking about physics was getting a little dry. She's been so important to us this whole way. So since 2018, we've been working on this project, and she's the reason. Let me give you a couple other quick things before we get into her presentation. There is a Healthy Homes Summit coming up. I am a part of that, and a whole bunch of other people that probably you follow are a part of that as well. There's a lot of misinformation that's being marketed to you. This is one way to hear from actual experts on this topic. Also, Got Mold is putting on a summit, and that's going to be in September. So please do check that out. Both of those events are going to be totally free. Again, links are included. Enough preamble. Let's go ahead and get into Paula Olsiewski's presentation.
Right. Good morning, everyone. I have a very easy job and a very hard job this morning. I have an easy job because I'm introducing Paula Olsiewski, and I think everyone in this room knows that Paula is, smart, well-connected, champion of early career and systematically underrepresented researchers, has really kind of supplied the vision for and built this program. So very easy introduction, but also a very hard introduction because I've been given a strict 2-minute limit to do so. And so I could say a lot more positive about Paula, and many of the speakers yesterday echoed some of that. But I want to talk about one specific thing here with my 70 seconds remaining, and that is many people talk about the vision that Paula brought to this program. And I think that's really important, but there's a difference between having a vision and having the intentionality to realize that vision. And I think that's really what has made this program so strong. And in particular, I've often heard Paula say, her job is to get smart people together doing, and the good research will come from that. And I think that the part of that doesn't quite get acknowledged is, there's a ton of effort and a ton of thought that goes into all the details of making this program what it was. So one of the first times I met Paula was this little workshop in New York City that was talking about bioterrorism and the potential for a pandemic. And this is one of the, this is a commentary that came out of that. It was published in Science. You'll notice that Paula is one of the authors. And it's about the next flu pandemic. And this is from 2006. And I'll just point out that how many of the things, if you go and read this, how many of the things came to pass during COVID, and how, and so I just want to kind of echo that intentionality and how important the thought process that Paula has made this program.
Well, good morning. Thank you for those very kind words, Jeff. Thank you, Glenn. Oh, wait, we're at my last slide, so we have to close them up and go to my first slide, please. Anyway, so I will still start talking. If you know, my name is Paula Olsiewski. I'm currently a contributing scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security, but I had the pleasure of developing the Chemistry of Indoor Environments program. And so I'm going to give a talk. It's really my memoir. And I think I'll start by thanking the Sloan Foundation, thanking Ralph Gomery, who was a an extraordinarily brilliant mathematician who could be somewhat difficult, but he was very demanding, but really was just a great visionary. And he hired me. So I want to thank Ralph for hiring me. I want to thank Yolanda Wolf, who's here, who provided support for me my entire time at the Sloan Foundation. And I want somewhere Evan Michelson is here. I want to thank Evan for graciously shepherding the program when I left. Okay, so how do I make this move? Green arrow. All right. So as I reflect on my life, my career in the program, what are the keys to success? And also there's no timer here, so someone's going to have to help me on that. All right, so the world, according to Paula Olsiewski, is there are two keys to success: the people and the collaborations. And this is really how I've lived my life. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There's some disagreements online whether that really is an African proverb, but it basically speaks to the way I have worked in my entire life. All right, so a couple things. I can never know too many people. And in fact, there's some people here that I still need to meet. I hope I do get a chance to talk to you. But anyway, I can never know too many people because it's the people that make things happen. I'm also very open to new ideas because there's just so many important things that need to be addressed. And it's the people and their ideas. And then my other point is that life, or at least my life, has been one long job interview. All right, so why chemistry? Why did I go into chemistry? All right. My parents weren't educated, but they knew I loved science from the start. And so I got one of these fabulous Gilbert chemistry sets that are probably totally illegal by now and should be outlawed. But I really liked it. And I did an extraction of rose petals to make a perfume. It was great. All right. And then the other, again, this is early in my life. I had the world's best chemistry teacher, Mr. Holbert, who's right here. I had 2 years of chemistry with him. You even had to go after school to work in the lab. And he was so tough and he was so wonderful. And it's just like the molecules, the processes, he totally inspired me and pushed me and saw something in me. So, and may he rest in peace. But anyway, all right. So somehow I managed to, I want to study chemistry. I managed to be one of the early women at Yale. And I don't know whether that was good or bad for me. The school went co-ed. It's like, well, see if I can get in. Got in. I wanted to study chemistry. How's that going to work? There are very few women there. There are really no women on the faculty. Anyway, it worked out. Anyway, so again, I want to just talk about a couple of the people that help make it work. And so the person on the left is Sally Chapman. All right, so there really aren't any women in the chemistry department. There really aren't. There are only 4 women who are chem majors, and 3 of them are pre-med. So that they want to just like complete the requirements. But Sally was a physical chemist, and she was the TA. She was my TA, and she just kept encouraging me. And again, it's not like I had the great high school teacher, but again, Sally, just provided encouragement and advice, and I really needed it. And she also gave me advice about graduate school. We'll get to that. Now, Sally was sort of she became a professor at Barnard, but again, as with many of the women in chemistry in that time, she devoted her entire life to chemistry and making chemistry fair to women. But she did not have a family and so on. And may she rest in peace. All right, so then the other person. Okay, so I have this graduate student helping me. And now I get a job as a technician in Harry Wasserman's lab. Harry at the time was an extremely famous organic chemist. And like, I need the job because I'm a scholarship student. How's this going to work out? Now, I don't have a picture of her because I never met her, but his wife also got her PhD in R.B. Woodward's lab with Harry, Elga Wasserman, but like things weren't really open to her. So she actually she had a teaching job. But again, you want to read about marginalized women who've been marginalized in chemistry, I can give you a lot of books, but that's not what the talk is. But the talk, what was good is that Elga was responsible for like making co-education a success. So I think for some, it's like, Harry had to live the dream. She's a, a woman with a PhD. Of course he's going to have, so anyway, so thank you, Harry. And again, may he rest in peace. All right, so now I'm going to graduate school at MIT. Now, a couple things here, really important. Okay, so I was very concerned. Again, there aren't a lot of women in chemistry. Harry gave me the advice about what labs didn't take women. Anyway, but you can see here I am in the Chris Walsh's lab. I'm sure you can see me there as a, however old I was, but I'm still recognizable. And you can see it's like a co-ed. And then there's a picture of Michael Marletta on the side. For some reason, I couldn't find any lab pictures. But anyway, many of the people in this slide became, sort of lifelong friends and colleagues. And many of them I talked to about my interest in chemistry. And the other thing that's interesting is that Chris Walsh, whose lab I worked in, Sally Chapman was his sister-in-law. She said, go work for my brother-in-law. Okay, so anyway, it's like, so these pathways are opening. I've got Elga helping me. I've got all these people helping me. All right. And Chris was great. And may he also rest in peace. He passed, he fell down a flight of stairs at the beginning of the year. It's very sad. All right. So we're fast forwarding through a lot of different things that I did. And I went over to the Sloan Foundation to help someone to get a grant. And going back to my life as a job interview, I got a job at the Sloan Foundation that I wasn't looking for. And I'm calling this my pathway to indoor chemistry. And you notice it starts with bioterrorism, then pandemic preparedness, then the microbiology of the built environments program, and then the chemistry of indoor environments. And I really can't talk, I really can't give you details on ready.gov, working with Interpol, working on synthetic. I mean, I did lots of interesting things, but I've got to get to indoor chemistry, and it's about the people. All right. So here's one of my, I have like no publications because that wasn't part of my, so this is a 2006 paper. Jeff, I don't know why you're not an author on this, but improving performance of HVAC systems to reduce exposure to aerosolized infectious agents in buildings. So, all right, great. We had some good ideas. There's a picture of Tom Inglesby up there. All right, he's one of the co-authors. He's a junior person. Who's my boss now at the Center for Health Security? Tom Inglesby. All right, anyway. So, no, I'm just saying, it's just like you have to, if you keep the long view, all right? And so, I don't know if you can read it, but we've got a number of extraordinary infectious disease and public health experts in here, D.A. Henderson, Tara, Tom. We've got buildings people. You probably know Terry Brennan. Many people here know Barney Burroughs, Woody Delp, Bill Bonfleth, who I still collaborate with. We've got John Samet, who's an so this is a long time before the chemistry program, but I'm already trying to understand buildings, and I'm already working with multidisciplinary groups, because this is how you can make progress. We can skip this, another one of my few publications. But again, it's like there's consistency into what I do. All right, so now let's move on to the microbiology of the built environment program. How did I get into this? If you're dealing with bioterrorism, you're looking for you're looking for a needle in a haystack. What's in the haystack? People spend 90% of their time indoors. What is the indoor microbial ecosystem, in the building? What happens? So Craig Venter at the time literally had just finishing sequencing the human genome, and then did some very innovative sampling of the Sargasso Sea, and using the techniques that he had developed for the human genome, did all sorts of sequencing of microbial life in the Sargasso Sea. And so he was into environmental microbiology. And we invited Craig to give a seminar, and we said, hey, Craig, how'd you like to work on indoor air? How'd you like to study indoor air, compare it to outdoor air? He says, sure, I'll do it. Yeah, okay, great. So he can do anything. He can do anything. I mean, he's truly one of the most remarkable scientists I've ever worked with. And so immediately there's an article in the New York Times after mapping the human genome, analyzing the city's air. Because remember, I'm from New York. I love New York, but everyone in New York is so self-centered. So of course, New York City's air, indoor and out, should be mapped. Now, the importance of working with someone like Craig is that if this idea to start mapping the indoor microbial world was a mistake or there were problems, he's successful. He can just forget about this project. So I just want you to know how difficult it was. Okay, I did not pair him up with a buildings person. Mistake number one. Problem number two, the microbial life indoors is so sparse unless you have water or moisture that he had endless sampling and contamination problems. He got the grant in 2004. The paper was published 9 years later. But the program was still a success. And fortunately, despite Craig's struggles, I met a lot of great people. And here are 4 people I just want to just highlight. Bill Nazaroff, who's here. Bill and teamed up with Jordan Peccia and basically came up, and wrote a paper showing that humans are the sources of the, indoor microbial world, the bacteria and so on. Jessica Green, also an environmental engineer who had I'm a microbial ecologist. She really wanted to study microbes in buildings, and she really married the ecology, the data, and the built environment by working with an architect. And they had a center at Oregon. All right, Jonathan, and again, this is a while ago. Okay, Jonathan Eisen. I'll just call him a microbial ecologist. But anyway, he's a dear colleague. So when I was developing this program, I thought he would want to do something. And he's like, no, I want to do the outreach. I want to do the outreach. So Jonathan, set up outreach, did all sorts of things, taught everyone how to use social media. He had training and so on. So Jonathan, and to this day, it continues to be a great communicator of science. And then the final person here is Mark Hernandez, another environment. I just love working with the environmental engineers. They've been so good to me all along. Anyway, Mark is another environmental engineer who is at Colorado, and he ended up organizing all the meetings for the program. And there was a lot of social engineering, and there was assigned seating at lunch and dinner because we wanted to mix up the different people. And the biologists and engineers did not seem to mesh as well as the chemists and engineers, but this helped. Anyway, so these are extraordinary people. I'm grateful to have worked with them. All right, so the program was a big success. The indoor microbiome is created by the humans that inhabit it. It turns out the water supply was really important. The Drinking Water Act, the Safe Drinking Water Act is good, but if you're breathing the water, you might actually worry about what's coming out of your shower head. And then in the end, the collaborations between what we'll call building scientists and life scientists were extremely impactful. And there were 2 National Academies reports, and that's because one on the left was really about air and surfaces, and the one on the right was really about water. All right, so now let me just mention a couple workshops, because workshops are important convenings. All right, so this 2017 workshop in Singapore, the purpose was to bring together the Moby people, because in the program, we did not study health or infectious disease, but Jordan Peccia said, Paul, I think it's important. We teamed up with NUS in Singapore. We had many colleagues that helped make this happen. And there was a workshop on infectious disease transmission in the built environment. And Bill was there. And again, I list a number of people here, but a number of these people have saved us during the pandemic. And I'm grateful that they met each other at that so they could work together later. Anyway, and then the final workshop in that program was on viruses in the built environment. And one of the challenges when you're trying to develop a field is what tools and techniques do you have? Are they readily accessible? Can you analyze the data? So so back when we funded Craig, sequencing was so expensive that most of the work was done by some sort of proxies to look at the DNA for the organisms. But sequencing became really cheap. So by the end of the program, You could sequence the whole virus for a reasonable amount of money. Don't ask me what that is. But anyway, so Lindsay Marr and Kyle Bibby said, Paula, can we have like a workshop on this? I'm like, sure. Anyway, so this actually they came up with a research agenda for how to study viruses in the built environment and published this in January of 2020. All right, so let's go back to 2012. The day I walked into the Sloan Foundation, I wanted a chemistry program. Okay, like, could I bring atmospheric chemists indoors? Okay, so my dear friend Michael Marletta, who is just like a postdoc in the lab, and I was a graduate student, he became a prominent chemist. He won a MacArthur. But anyway, but Michael is a dear friend, and I kept saying like, Michael, should I do this? And so there, and I'm talking to other people. I'm talking to Chris Walsh. So anyway, Michael finally says to me, you should just go talk to Mark Cardillo. He's in New York, whatever. And Mark at the time was the executive director of the Dreyfus Foundation. And that's like the premier foundation for funding chemistry. And Mark made me acutely aware that the atmospheric chemists had exquisite analytical tools and techniques. So my usual modus operandi is like, let's sit down over a meal and talk about this. And Mark introduced me to John Seinfeld. Most of the people in this room know I was a little bit terrified of meeting John, but that worked out really well. I knew Charlie, I knew Bill. I actually invited one or two other people to this meeting. Can't remember who they are. And anyway, but at this dinner meeting, I was first a little worried because I'm like, I do all sorts of social engineering, and I pick like, what kind of food do I want? What kind of wine? Whatever, all like in certain price points. And Alan's like, Paula, I'm bringing my wine. It's like, well, fortunately, not only is Alan a great chemist, he's a great vintner. So but it was like one of those things like, oh, and I remember Alan brought the homemade wine, but it actually helped us. It worked out really well. And basically all these people at this dinner said, actually, I think it might be good to start an indoor chemistry program. All right. So we had an exploratory phase. And if there are any Yankee fans in the room, just like the Yankees had the core four. And if you're not a Yankee fan, just remember you need important ball players. I needed really good chemists. And so we kind of divided up the field into like this: aerosols, surfaces, occupants, and moisture. All right. So I managed to convince each of these people to be in the exploratory phase, and they got a postdoc and some other money, but like to do some experiments, like, was this a good idea or is this like really not a good idea? Anyway, so they all said yes, and they all started working. And meanwhile, everyone told me I needed to meet Glenn, and I finally met him in 2014 at an indoor air meeting. And Glenn actually called me up and said, Paula, I'm doing a workshop in France, co-sponsored by the National Science Foundation. Are you interested? I'm like, yes. All right. Again, this is interaction between indoor and atmospheric chemistry. This was a really important workshop. I met lots and lots of people, and it was really an eye-opener in terms of what was indoor chemistry was going on in Europe and so on. But it was also the lunch. Okay, so think if you go to a US government, maybe Canadian too, facility that's a scientific facility, and they're giving you lunch. You are not getting a gourmet French lunch with duck leg, cheese. Everybody who was at this workshop still talks about the food. And also we talk about the science because that was important. So anyway, but workshop's important. And I can't thank the people in this room enough. And if I don't mention your name, but like all these people who organize workshops and so on, it's really important getting the people together, because in person, you can say, well, is that really a good idea? Or I don't know, I have these weird results, like, what do I do? So anyway, all right. So now we've moved along, and we've formalized the program. We have these research themes: sources, chemical and physical transformations, environments and occupants, and modeling is a cross-cutting theme, and surfaces are important. Okay, so let's talk about the modeling consortium. At some point at the Sloan Foundation, I inherited the Deep Carbon Observatory. we're not going to go into the science. We're just going to talk about the modelers. And the modelers in that program were funded separately, and they did not cooperate. Okay, so the modelers are not cooperating. I want the modelers to talk to each other. That was not going well. And so I'm not even worrying about what they're doing with the experimentalists. And so I am grateful because I'm not a modeler. Like, okay, we're going to put all the modelers getting funded under one grant, and they're going to somehow work together across time scales and in size and processes. And this was one of the best things. I mean, there are so many excellent, but this was the best thing because, okay, the modelers all cooperated and collaborated, but they also cooperated and collaborated. And I still remember Manabu saying to me at one point, oh, Paula, if I could just have the data before it's published. So I think that this, again, and many people encouraged me to do this, and Vicki Gracian as well. Is like, Paula, if the modelers and experimentalists work together, you're going to do really. So anyway, so here we are out. Here is the modeling consortium outside the test house in the heat of Texas, and it was great. All right. So let's talk about home chem. All right. So, and we have the PIs here. Nina, wherever you are, I'm sorry you're missing this. Delphine, thank you. I can't thank you enough. So if you go back to the MOBI program, I was like, I didn't even tell you that people weren't sharing data, and that was a different program. So the modelers aren't talking, the data people aren't talking. Mark Hernandez did a good job with the meetings, but like so I did two different small grants, one for Nita to work on like how we're going to sort of set up communications and sharing data and, communication, I can't remember what else. And Delphine was going to do data sharing. And I even had some of the people from the microbiology of the built environment program come, who were the big data people. And actually they participated in home chem. But after these different meetings, they came to me and said, Paul, we need to do a field campaign. That's how people will share data. They'll do. And so anyway, that was like a brilliant idea that I never would have thought of. I didn't think we could afford it. And these two people made it happen. And another thing that was really important about that field, Nina was a newly minted assistant professor, introduced me by her postdoctoral advisor, Lindsay Moore. And what was great is the senior chemist in the program took her under their wing and helped her to make, because like, if you're in one of these big grants, you need the money you need the contract. Anyway, so that really worked out well. All right, so we have talked about a few meals, working dinners, trying to socially engineer situations. Yep. So I've had a whole series of these. Here's one, and maybe in Lithuania. Yolanda organized them all in multiple countries. Fortunately, she speaks many languages. And thank you. All right, I had this great advisory committee. All right, here they are. The people who haven't mentioned yet: Veronica Vida, Jack Spengler, John Seinfeld, my colleague Jesse Osabel, Linda Birnbaum, Mark Cardello, Charlie. These people are wonderful. And this is our last meeting in New York before the pandemic. We have this report, you've seen that. Let's celebrate career progression, because is the field any good? So all these people, and if you're missing from this list, I'm sorry, I've redone this slides 3 times since I got here. All these full professor, like yesterday, Tara's a full professor. I didn't know. Okay. All these associate professors. Look at all these tenure track assistant professors. And then some of these people I didn't know they were even tenure track professors. And they're like, oh, my tenure package is in. So hopefully. but it's also good that people are doing other things. And that is, all right, go back to the dark ages, and you either could be a woman in science, or you could be, but you couldn't have a family. So this has been a very productive community. I did not count up the babies, but I have met some of them and so on. And so that's really good. All right, so we have COVID. It arrives. Fortunately, we already have these networks of people who already know each other, and the buildings people are used to the virologists and chemists, and can science inform policy? COVID is airborne, we know that. Do air cleaners clean the air? So we're going to skip through a few things. Okay, so I told you, Tommy, we get to 2020, the program is all funded. I joined the center. Who knew Tom Inglesby would hire me? Who knew I would want to work at the center? And the initial focus was on COVID mitigation. You know that's been a mitigation of aerosol infectious disease indoors has been a long-term interest of mine. Switched to indoor air quality, and to do this work is really my network is key. So it's how do I get to policy? You have to prod the government. It's not easy to do. You need the technical community and more, but you also need industry. You need academia. You need government. Who knew I'd be talking to a union boss about some of my work? But again, you need the entire community. You need to make the science easy to understand. One of our great indoor air advocates is Representative Beyer, and he came to talk at one of the meetings I hosted at the Center for Health Security. And he said, I just want you to know, before I joined Congress, I sold cars, and I'm happy to talk to you about indoor air. No, so he wasn't studying in the bowels of, some building to get a PhD. So anyway, so you have to make the science understand, and then understand your audiences. Okay, indoor air quality challenges. Okay, we're not going to go through this slide because I don't have enough time because I have to go through a couple other things. And that is that I think PM is the thing that we need to look at for indoor air quality, because based on, I have an economist colleague, actually I should say Gigi Gronville and Richard Bruns, who are two of my colleagues at the center. That kills you more than anything else. All right, everybody knows it's hard to do IAQ. And how do you either dilute it, remove it with filtration? And I put 254 here because we've got to sort out a lot of things with UV at 222. All right. So what do I do at the center? I talk to people, I call up my old friends, I make new friends, we tackle issues, and then we write reports, and then we send them to people so that hopefully they'll take action. So in 2021, various government agencies were not providing the vital information that they needed. And again, even Jeff showed the slide. I'm working on the pandemic, what to do before the vaccine arrives, quite a while ago. So we wrote this report, basically, number one, all schools should fix their HVAC. 2, upgrade your air filtration if you can. 3, add 2 HEPA units to each classroom. If you can't buy them, make them. 4, stop deep cleaning. Stop deep cleaning. 5, take the money and actually get yourself a good HVAC. And 6, we need a group to work out the standards. Okay. So then all right, so that's happening. And so the next thing and also there are people in the room who helped me, all of these 3 projects that I'm outlining from the center have helped me by being experts, coming to meetings and so on. And I'm really grateful. So the next one is I was convening experts to develop a national strategy for indoor air quality. We had people from WHO, and actually they even had an indoor air meeting recently, which is good. But anyway, so what can you do? Okay, all right. So one of the things you could do is you can come up with model law. And so our most recent project, and again, a number of people in this room, Seema Banger, Jose Jimenez, let's see, Kerry Kinney's not here. I'm forgetting other people in the room who helped me. But we developed, working with some lawyers I had worked with a long time ago when it was important to develop the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act that was adopted eventually by most states. The feds won't regulate indoor air, so let's go work with the states. So anyway, we developed this, we released it in August, and who knew, by the middle of September, Representative Driscoll in Massachusetts had already introduced it, basically taking up most of the things. So it's a long way to get it implemented, but I'm trying. So anyway, what am I doing next at the center? 2 things, and I'm having a fabulous time. Okay, so I was sorry to leave Sloan and whatever, but I'm doing well, and I still get to work with my people. And so 2 different workshops, one looking at dose response for airborne pathogens. A number of people in this room love the Wells-Riley equation. There might even be some people in this room who are from epidemiology and think really differently and don't care about the Wells-Riley equation. If we're gonna figure out how to ventilate buildings to reduce, airborne pathogens where everybody can agree, we need a workshop on that. And then far UV, all right. I'm going to convene a small workshop to bring together the people, all the different people, and we'll just make sure we can figure out what's unknown in the science, because we need to balance the risks and benefits. As you know, I've been working on pandemic preparedness for a very long period of time. I am concerned another one may come. So I want to make sure that we have all the tools on the toolbox to be ready before the vaccine arrives. And we also know that people don't want vaccines, necessarily want them. So anyway, I don't know, Glenn, did I go over? But thank you, and I'll take questions. And thank you, and thank you.